Good evening and welcome back to another long haul through the stories of the American highways. Pull over, get comfortable, and let's ride north together. Way north. Tonight, we're heading to a place where the road doesn't just challenge you, it changes you. Where the sun disappears for months, then refuses to set for months more. Where temperatures drop so low your breath freezes midair, and the road itself can vanish beneath drifting snow in minutes. We're talking about Alaska's ice roads, specifically the James Dalton Highway, a 414-mile stretch of gravel and asphalt that runs from Fairbanks to Deadhorse on the Arctic Ocean. But this isn't just a story about a road. It's about the people who drive it, the darkness they navigate, the light they chase, and the midnight miles that test everything they've got. So settle in, adjust your seat. This one's going to be a long ride, and we've got a lot of ground to cover. Let's roll. There's something about the far north that pulls at certain people. Maybe it's the promise of good money. Ice road truckers can make anywhere from $150,000 to $175,000 a year, working mostly during the winter season when the ice roads open up across the tundra. Maybe it's the challenge, the chance to prove yourself on one of the most dangerous highways in North America. Or maybe, just maybe, it's something deeper, something about testing yourself against nature in its rawest form, about driving through a landscape so vast and empty that you feel like the last person on Earth, about seeing things, the northern lights dancing overhead, caribou herds crossing the road in the thousands, mountains so sharp and white they look like they've been carved from diamonds, that most people will never witness in their entire lives. The Dalton Highway wasn't built for tourists. It wasn't built for adventurers or thrill seekers. It was built in 1974, carved out of the wilderness in just 5 months to support the construction of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline system. They needed a way to haul supplies and equipment to Prudhoe Bay, where some of the richest oil fields in North America had been discovered. So they built a road, if you can call it that. More accurately, they scraped a path through boreal forest, across rivers, over mountain passes, and onto the North Slope tundra. They called it the North Slope Haul Road back then, though it's since been renamed after James W. Dalton, an Arctic engineer who helped pioneer oil exploration in Alaska. For years, this highway was closed to the public. Only trucks servicing the oil fields could use it. But in 1994, they opened it up to anyone brave, or crazy, enough to drive it. And let me tell you, not many rental car companies will let you take their vehicles up there. In fact, most make you sign contracts specifically prohibiting it. The road will tear up a regular vehicle. Flying rocks from 18-wheelers will crack your windshield, or worse. The frost heaves and potholes will rattle your car apart. One guy who drove the road described it perfectly. It's not even washboard anymore, it's nonstop violence. But for truckers, this is their highway, this is their office, and they know every mile of it. They've given names to all the features along the way, names you won't find on any map. There's Oh Shit Corner, a sharp turn that's gotten more than one driver's attention. There's Beaver Slide, where the road drops away so suddenly you feel like you're airborne for a second. Ice Cut slices through a wall of permafrost, solid ice that's been frozen for thousands of years. Gobbler's Knob offers views so stunning that even veteran drivers will pull over just to look. And then there's the Roller Coaster, a section of road that rises and falls so dramatically it can make your stomach flip. These names tell you everything you need to know. This isn't just a highway. It's a living thing with moods and dangers and moments of unexpected beauty. And the truckers who run it have developed their own culture, their own code. There's a brotherhood on the Dalton. When you see another trucker in trouble, stuck in a snowdrift, dealing with a breakdown, or just pulled over to chain up, you stop. You help. Because up here, help isn't always coming. Cell service is non-existent for most of the route. The next gas station might be 150 miles away, and if the weather turns bad, you might be stranded for days. So yeah, truckers help each other. They communicate on CB radio, Channel 19, warning about road conditions, wildlife on the highway, and which sections are getting hammered by wind. They share stories at the few truck stops along the way. They develop a kind of shorthand, a way of speaking that's part weather report, part warning, part camaraderie. Watch the ice cut, she's slick today. Caribou at mile 230, thousands of them take it slow. Aurora's putting on a show tonight, boys. Don't fall asleep at the wheel. And that last one, that's not a joke. Because one of the strangest things about driving the Dalton in winter is that you're doing it in near total darkness. The sun barely rises above the horizon from November through January. Near the Arctic Circle, which the Dalton crosses at mile 115, you might get a few hours of twilight, a pale gray glow on the southern horizon, but that's it. The rest of the time, you're driving in the dark, headlights cutting through the blackness. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline as your constant companion, running parallel to the road, its silver skin reflecting your lights back at you. But here's the thing about that darkness. It's not empty. When the skies are clear and the aurora borealis comes out to play, you're driving through a light show unlike anything in the lower 48. Green curtains ripple overhead. Purple and pink tendrils dance across the sky. Sometimes the whole northern horizon erupts in waves of color, pulsing and shifting like a living thing. And you're just there in your truck, rolling through the frozen wilderness with the northern lights as your traveling companion. Truckers talk about it like they're talking about an old friend. Saw her last night, one might say. She was feeling frisky, danced for hours. Another might nod and say, yeah, she's been showing off lately. Must be solar storm season. Because they know. They've learned the patterns. They check the aurora forecast just like they check the weather. And when the forecast says it's going to be a good night, they'll pull over at one of the turnouts, kill the engine, step out into cold so intense it steals your breath, and just watch. I talked to a driver named Richard, people call him Mustang, who's been running the Dalton for years. He told me about a night when the aurora was so bright, so intense, that it lit up the snow around him like it was daylight. I could see my shadow, he said. Green shadow on white snow. Never seen anything like it before or since. Made me forget all about the cold. Made me forget about the load I was hauling. For about 10 minutes, I just stood there and watched the sky dance. That's the thing about the Dalton. It gives you moments like that. Moments when the harshness and the danger and the isolation all fade away and you're left with something pure. Something that reminds you why you do this job. Why you leave your family for weeks at a time. Why you drive through conditions that would make most people turn around. Why you accept the risk, the cold, the darkness. Because there's magic up here. There's money, sure. The pay is good, better than you'll make hauling freight anywhere else in the country. But there's also something else, something harder to put into words, a sense of accomplishment, of being part of something bigger, of serving a purpose. These trucks aren't just hauling cargo, they're hauling life, food for the workers at the oil fields, medicine, drilling equipment, spare parts. Everything that makes modern life possible in one of the most remote places on Earth. Without trucks, Prudhoe Bay doesn't function. The oil doesn't flow. And a big chunk of America's energy supply disappears. So yeah, it's dangerous. Yeah, it's hard, but it matters. And for the men and women who drive the Dalton, that sense of mattering, of being essential, is worth more than all the danger pay in the world. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start in Fairbanks, where the journey begins. Fairbanks in winter is something special. Not special in a comfortable way. Temperatures regularly drop to -20, -30, sometimes even -40 or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. At those temperatures, your nostrils freeze when you breathe in. Your eyelashes stick together. If you throw a cup of hot water in the air, it'll turn to ice crystals before it hits the ground. But there's a beauty to it too. The city sits in a valley, and when the temperature drops, ice fog forms. Tiny crystals of frozen water vapor that hang in the air, making everything look soft and dreamlike. The lights of the city glow through the fog like something out of a fairy tale, and on clear nights, you can see the aurora dancing overhead right from downtown. This is where most of the trucking companies operating on the Dalton are based. Alaska West Express, Carlisle Transportation, Sourdough Express, a company that's been around since 1898, one of the oldest in the state. These outfits dispatch trucks north every day during the winter season, hauling everything from fuel to food to drilling rigs. They've got terminals in Fairbanks where drivers hook up to their loads, check their equipment, and prepare for the long haul north. The preparation isn't simple. This isn't like hooking up a trailer in Texas and rolling north on I-35. Up here, you've got to think about everything. Do you have enough fuel? Most trucks have massive fuel tanks, big enough to get them to Prudhoe Bay and back with reserve left over in case they get stuck. Because getting stuck is a real possibility. If a blizzard hits and the road closes, you might be sitting in your cab for days, engine running to keep warm, burning through diesel the whole time. Do you have emergency supplies? Food, water, extra clothes, a sleeping bag rated for Arctic temperatures, flares, a CB radio? This is mandatory. You can't drive the Dalton without one. Some drivers carry satellite phones as backup. First aid kit. Spare tires, not just one but two full-size spares, because the gravel road is littered with chunks of metal that have fallen off other trucks, and flat tires are common. Tire chains for ice. A shovel for digging out if you slide off the road. Jumper cables. Extra oil. Windshield washer fluid, you'll go through gallons of it, and that's just the basics. Experienced drivers have their own additions. One guy I heard about carries a camp stove and canned soup, figuring if he's stuck for a few days, he might as well have hot meals. Another keeps a small library of books in his cab. You can only listen to so much CB chatter before you want to throw the radio out the window, he said. Books keep me sane. Some drivers bring guitars, some bring journals. One woman told me she brings her knitting. Keeps my hands busy during the downtime, she said. And I've made some damn good sweaters sitting in truck stops waiting for the weather to clear. The mental preparation is just as important as the physical prep. You're about to spend 11 to 15 hours behind the wheel. That's how long it takes to drive from Fairbanks to Deadhorse if everything goes smoothly. And things rarely go smoothly. You might hit a whiteout and have to slow to a crawl, following the pipeline because you can't see the road. You might encounter a herd of caribou, thousands of them, crossing the highway, and you have to stop and wait, sometimes for hours while they pass. You might face winds so strong they push your truck sideways. Or you might get lucky and have a clear run, the road firm, the sky clear, the miles rolling past like they're supposed to. Either way, you're alone, or mostly alone. You'll pass other trucks on a busy day during the peak season. 15 to 20 trucks a day might be heading north from each company. But the road is 414 miles long, so you won't see them often. Most of the time, it's just you, your truck, and the pipeline. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline runs right alongside the Dalton for most of its length, a silver thread through the wilderness. It's 800 miles long in total, running from Prudhoe Bay to Valdez on the southern coast, carrying oil through some of the harshest terrain in North America. Seeing it is oddly comforting. It's proof that you're not completely alone out here. It's proof that civilization, or at least industry, exists. The Elliott Highway takes you out of Fairbanks heading north. It's paved for the first stretch, and you're passing through what passes for suburbs in interior Alaska. Cabins and homesteads spread out along the road, each with a plume of smoke rising from the chimney. People out here live a different kind of life. They cut their own wood. They hunt for their food. They deal with the cold and the dark without complaint because this is just how it is. This is Alaska. About 70 miles north of Fairbanks, you reach the junction where the Elliott meets the Dalton. There's a gas station here, the last one you'll see for 56 miles. Most drivers top off their tanks here even if they don't need to. It's just good practice. And then you turn onto the Dalton and everything changes. The road immediately gets rougher. You can feel it through the wheel, the smooth pavement giving way to gravel, then to something that's more hole than road. The frost heaves are insane. During the summer, the permafrost underneath the road thaws slightly, and the road shifts and buckles. During the winter, everything freezes solid, but the damage is already done. So you're constantly hitting bumps, dips, and rises that can launch you out of your seat if you're not careful. Truckers call them whoop-de-doos, and they'll shake your truck hard enough to rattle your teeth. You're climbing now, gradually gaining elevation as you head toward the Yukon River. The landscape is still forest at this point, black spruce and white spruce, thin and scraggly, clinging to the permafrost. In the distance, you can see mountains. The White Mountains to the east with peaks that glow pink and gold during the brief hours of twilight. The forest is silent. No birds in winter, no rustling leaves. Just the sound of your engine and the crunch of tires on gravel. And then, at mile 56, you reach the Yukon River Bridge. This is one of the landmarks of the Dalton. One of the few places that feels like an actual destination rather than just another mile marker. The bridge is half a mile long, spanning the Yukon River, the longest river in Alaska and the Yukon Territory, a massive waterway that's been a highway for people in this region for thousands of years. During the Klondike Gold Rush, prospectors traveled the Yukon by boat and by foot, heading north to seek their fortunes. Today, the river is mostly used by locals, subsistence fishermen catching salmon, people traveling between villages by boat in summer and snowmobile in winter. The bridge was built in 1975 as part of the Dalton Highway construction, and it's one of only 4 vehicle-carrying bridges across the entire Yukon River. In winter, the river below is a solid sheet of white. Ice and snow pack it down until it looks like a highway itself. In fact, in some places, people do drive on the frozen Yukon, though you have to know what you're doing. Ice thickness varies, and hitting a thin spot can send you through to the frigid water below. There's a truck stop here, right at the bridge. It's run by the Bureau of Land Management, and it's staffed by volunteers during the summer months. In winter, it's mostly closed, but the building is there, and it's a place to pull over, stretch your legs, and take a breath before continuing north. Truckers stop here often. There's something about crossing the Yukon that feels significant. It's a threshold. You're leaving behind the last vestiges of civilization. From here on out, you're in the wild, and you can feel it. The air is different, colder somehow, even if the temperature hasn't changed. Emptier. You look north, and all you see is road disappearing into forest, and beyond that, mountains. The Brooks Range is still more than 100 miles away, but you can sense it. You can sense the scale of what you're about to drive through. Truckers talk about the feeling they get at the Yukon. It's like stepping off the edge of the world, one driver told me. Everything behind you is normal, cities, people, roads that make sense. Everything ahead is something else, something older, something that doesn't give a damn about you or your truck or your schedule. But that's the job. You get back in your truck, you fire up the engine. You roll across that bridge, listening to the hollow thump of your tires on the steel deck. And you keep going, mile after mile, hour after hour. The Dalton doesn't care if you're ready. It's there, waiting, and it'll show you things you've never seen before. Let's talk about what it's actually like to drive a truck on the Dalton Highway. Not the romanticized version, not the TV show drama or the adventure tourism angle. The real day-to-day experience of being a long-haul ice road trucker. First, understand this. Your truck is your world. In the lower 48, you might be on the road for days at a time, but you're passing through towns every few hours. There are truck stops with showers, diners with hot meals, rest areas where you can pull over and sleep in relative comfort. On the Dalton, there's none of that. From Fairbanks to Deadhorse, you've got exactly 3 places to get fuel. The Yukon River crossing at mile 56, Coldfoot at mile 175, and Deadhorse at the end at mile 414. 3 fuel stops in over 400 miles. And Coldfoot is the only one that resembles a traditional truck stop, and even that's stretching the definition. So your truck becomes everything. It's your office, your bedroom, your kitchen, your shelter. Modern sleeper cabs are actually pretty comfortable. They've got bunks with decent mattresses, storage space for clothes and supplies, sometimes a small refrigerator, a microwave, outlets to charge your phone or laptop. The better companies, Alaska West Express, Carlisle, Linden, equip their trucks with auxiliary power units that can run the heater and electronics without keeping the main engine running all night. This is crucial. At -40, if you shut your engine off and don't have an APU, you're going to wake up freezing. And restarting a diesel engine in extreme cold is no joke. The fuel gels. The oil turns to sludge. You need engine block heaters, glow plugs, sometimes even a propane torch to warm things up. Most truckers on the Dalton keep their engines running 24/7 during the winter. It's just safer that way. Diesel is cheap compared to the risk of being stranded with a frozen engine 200 miles from the nearest help. The driving itself is physically demanding in ways people don't expect. It's not just steering. You're constantly adjusting for road conditions. The gravel surface is unpredictable, smooth 1 mile, a moonscape of potholes the next. Frost heaves will buck your truck like a rodeo bull. In winter, the road is covered with a layer of packed snow that can be anywhere from a few inches to several feet thick, depending on when the plows last came through. And here's the thing about snow-covered gravel roads: they're slippery. Not ice slick, but treacherous in their own way. Your tires don't grip the same. You slide more easily. And when you're hauling 80,000 pounds of drilling equipment, sliding is not something you want to do. Then there's the wind. The Brooks Range creates these bizarre wind patterns. Sometimes the wind will funnel through the mountain passes and hit the highway with the force of a freight train. It'll push your truck sideways. You'll feel it grab your trailer and shove, and suddenly you're fighting to keep the truck on the road. Drivers talk about white-knuckle moments when they're gripping the wheel so hard their hands ache, wrestling with a gust that's trying to flip them over. And this can go on for miles. Some sections of the Dalton are notorious for wind. Finger Mountain, for example, is known as one of the windiest spots in Alaska. The wind screams through there almost constantly, carrying snow that reduces visibility to nothing. Whiteout conditions are another challenge entirely. When the wind picks up and the snow starts flying, you can lose the road completely. All you see is white. The sky is white. The ground is white. You can't tell where the road ends and the tundra begins. Your only reference point is the pipeline, so you follow it. You keep it on your right side or your left, depending on which direction you're traveling, and you trust that the road is still there, underneath all that white. It's unnerving as hell. You're crawling along at 15, maybe 20 miles an hour, straining to see anything, hoping you don't run into a stopped vehicle or a snowdrift or a moose standing in the middle of the road. And moose. Let's talk about wildlife for a minute. Moose are everywhere on the Dalton, especially in the forested sections in the southern part of the highway. These animals are massive. Bulls can weigh 1,500 pounds or more, stand 6 feet tall at the shoulder. And they're surprisingly fast. They can run at 35 miles per hour. But here's the problem. They're also incredibly stupid. They'll stand in the middle of the road, staring at your headlights and refuse to move. Or they'll start across the road, then change their minds halfway, then change their minds again. You can't predict what they're going to do, and hitting a moose is catastrophic. That much weight that high off the ground, if you hit one, it's going to come through your windshield. Truckers have been killed that way. So when you see a moose, you slow down. You stop if you have to. You give it time to decide what it wants to do. And you pray it doesn't decide to charge your truck, because yes, that happens too. Moose during mating season can be aggressive, and bulls especially will sometimes take offense at a truck and decide to fight it. There are videos online of moose attacking trucks, ramming them, kicking them. It's comical until you realize you're the one in the truck, and this 1,500-pound animal is trying to murder you. Caribou are different. They travel in herds, huge herds, sometimes thousands of animals. And when a herd decides to cross the road, you just have to wait. There's no rushing them. They'll take their time, flowing across the highway like a river. Some truckers find it peaceful watching all those animals move together. Others find it frustrating. You've got a schedule to keep, and here you are stuck watching caribou for an hour. But there's nothing you can do, so you sit, you watch. Maybe you take pictures, and eventually they pass and you get back on the road. Grizzly bears are less common, but they're up here, especially in the summer. In winter, they're hibernating, so you don't see them. But in late fall and early spring, when they're active, you have to be careful. Truckers have stories about bears approaching their trucks at pullouts, looking for food. One driver told me he woke up one morning to find a bear standing on its hind legs, peering in through his windshield. "I just sat there," he said, "didn't move, didn't make a sound, figured if I didn't bother him, he wouldn't bother me. Eventually he got bored and wandered off, but my heart was pounding for about an hour after that." And then there are the polar bears up near Deadhorse. These are apex predators. They're smart, they're curious, and they're not afraid of humans or trucks. Near the oil fields, they're known to wander through town looking for food. The oil companies have protocols for dealing with them. Basically, you stay inside until they leave. But it's surreal, looking out your window and seeing one of the most dangerous predators on Earth just hanging out by your truck. The isolation gets to some people. You're out there for hours alone with your thoughts. The CB radio helps. Channel 19 is always active, truckers chatting, warning each other about road conditions, telling jokes, complaining about the weather. There's a camaraderie that develops. You start recognizing voices. You know Big John, who runs for Carlisle and always has a story about his grandkids. You know Lisa, one of the few women drivers on the Dalton, who takes no crap from anyone and can outdrive most of the men. You know Dave, who's been running this road since the 70s and has seen it all. These voices become your companions. When the road is empty and the darkness is pressing in, and you're starting to feel that edge of loneliness, you can pick up the mic and say something. Ask how the road is up ahead. Mention that you saw the aurora. Crack a joke about the cold, and someone will respond. Always, because everyone up here understands. Everyone knows what it's like. There's a code on the Dalton. Loaded trucks hauling cargo north, have the right of way. They're making money. Empty trucks heading south are expected to pull over and let them pass. It's just how it works. And if you see someone in trouble, you stop. Period. Doesn't matter if they're from a competing company. Doesn't matter if you're in a hurry. You stop. You help. Because tomorrow it might be you. One driver told me about the time his truck broke down at mile 200, middle of nowhere. Temperature was -30. His engine had overheated, ironic, given the cold, and he was stuck. He got on the CB and called for help. Within 20 minutes, 3 trucks had stopped. One guy had a spare part that might work. Another had tools. The third just stayed to keep him company and make sure he didn't freeze. They got him running again, refused any payment, and went on their way. That's just what you do, the driver told me. Up here, we take care of each other. The food situation is challenging. There's a cafe at the Yukon River crossing, but it's only open in summer. There's a cafe in Coldfoot, but it's small and the menu is limited, basically burgers, soup, and coffee. So most drivers bring their own food. Sandwiches, canned soup, granola bars, jerky, instant ramen. Some drivers get creative. One guy I heard about has a slow cooker in his cab. He'll load it up with a roast and vegetables before he leaves Fairbanks, and by the time he gets to Coldfoot, he's got a hot meal waiting. Best pot roast you'll ever have, he claims. Something about cooking it at 60 miles an hour on a bumpy road makes it extra tender. Sleep is another issue. Legally, You're allowed to drive up to 15 hours within a 20-hour window in Alaska. The rules are different here than in the lower 48 because of the long distances and sparse population. But most drivers don't push it that hard. They'll drive 11 or 12 hours, then pull over at a turnout and sleep in their cab. The good turnouts have level ground and some protection from the wind. The bad ones are just gravel pads next to the road, and you're getting buffeted all night by passing trucks and wind gusts. Sleeping in a truck in the Arctic winter is an experience. Even with the engine running and the heater going, you can feel the cold seeping in. You pile on blankets. You wear a hat. Some drivers sleep in their coats. And you wake up every few hours to check on things. Make sure the fuel isn't running low. Make sure nothing's frozen. Make sure a bear hasn't decided to investigate your truck. But here's the thing. Despite all the challenges, the cold, the isolation, the danger, the sheer physical and mental exhaustion, most drivers wouldn't trade it for anything. There's something about this job that gets into your blood. The sense of freedom, maybe. The knowledge that you're doing something most people can't or won't do. The pay is excellent, sure. But it's more than that. It's the moments. Pulling over at sunrise, or what passes for sunrise in winter, a faint glow on the southern horizon, and seeing the mountains turn gold. Watching the northern lights put on a show so spectacular you forget about the cold. Helping another driver get unstuck and seeing the genuine gratitude in their eyes. Making it through a bad storm and feeling that rush of accomplishment. Talking with your fellow drivers on the CB and feeling like you're part of something. A community of people who understand this strange, difficult, beautiful life. One driver summed it up like this. I've been running the Dalton for 15 years. I've had close calls. I've been scared. I've been cold enough that I thought I might not make it, but I keep coming back because this road tests you. It shows you what you're made of. And when you make it through, when you deliver your load and turn around and head home, you feel alive in a way you never do sitting in traffic in Seattle or hauling freight down I-5. This road demands respect. It demands everything you've got. And in return, it gives you memories and experiences that most people will never have. That's life in the cab on the Dalton Highway. It's hard, it's lonely, it's dangerous. And for those who do it, it's exactly where they want to be. Now let's talk about something that makes the Dalton Highway even more unique, the light, or the lack of it, depending on the season. Alaska is called the land of the midnight sun for a reason. During summer, the sun barely sets. At the summer solstice in June, in Fairbanks, you get about 22 hours of daylight. Drive north to the Arctic Circle, and the sun doesn't set at all for several days around the solstice. Drive all the way to Deadhorse, and you get more than 80 days of continuous daylight from mid-May to early August. Imagine that for a second. 80 days where the sun never goes down. It just circles around the horizon, dipping low but never disappearing. You can go for a walk at midnight and it looks like midday. Birds are singing. Wildflowers are blooming. The tundra is alive with mosquitoes. Millions and millions of mosquitoes. So many they form clouds you can see from a distance. And the light just keeps coming, hour after hour, day after day, until your sense of time gets completely warped. Truckers talk about how strange it is to drive north in summer. There's no darkness to mark the end of the day. You're supposed to sleep. Your body's telling you to sleep, but the sun is shining in your face and your brain is confused. A lot of drivers bring blackout curtains for their sleeper cabs, heavy material that blocks all the light so they can trick their bodies into thinking it's night. Without them, sleep is almost impossible. But summer isn't when most trucks run the Dalton. Summer is actually the slow season for ice road truckers. The roads are too soft. The permafrost thaws just enough that the tundra turns into mush, and heavy trucks can't drive on it. So most of the hauling happens in winter, when the ground freezes solid and the ice roads open up across the north slope. That's when the real trucking season begins, November through April. And in winter, you have the opposite problem. The sun doesn't rise. Well, that's not entirely accurate. In Fairbanks in December, you get about 3 to 4 hours of twilight, a dim glow on the southern horizon around midday. That's it. The rest of the time, it's dark. Drive north to the Arctic Circle and you get even less light. Drive to Deadhorse and from late November to mid-January, the sun doesn't come up at all. You're in polar night. 65 days of continuous darkness, broken only by a brief period of twilight around noon. This is what most people can't wrap their heads around. 2 months without seeing the sun. 2 months of driving in the dark. Your entire workday happens in darkness. You wake up and it's dark. You climb into your truck and it's dark. You drive for 12 hours and it's dark the whole time. You reach your destination, unload, turn around and drive back and it's still dark. Your headlights become your world. 2 beams of light cutting through the blackness, illuminating the road ahead for maybe 100 yards. Beyond that, nothing. Just darkness so complete it feels solid, like you could reach out and touch it. The psychological impact is real. Seasonal affective disorder is common in Alaska. The lack of sunlight messes with your brain chemistry. People get depressed. They get lethargic. They struggle to find motivation. Truckers aren't immune to this. Some handle it better than others, but everyone feels it to some degree. That weight of darkness, that sense of being disconnected from the normal rhythms of day and night. But here's where it gets interesting. Because that darkness, as oppressive as it can be, also opens the door to something extraordinary. The northern lights. The aurora borealis is always happening. Charged particles from the sun are constantly hitting Earth's magnetic field and creating those shimmering curtains of light. But you can't see them during the day and you can barely see them during twilight. You need darkness, real darkness. The kind of darkness you only get in winter, far from city lights. And the Dalton Highway runs right through the aurora oval, the ring-shaped zone around the Arctic where aurora activity is most intense. This means that on clear nights, you're driving through one of the best light shows on the planet. Drivers describe it in different ways, but everyone agrees on one thing: it never gets old. You can see the aurora 100 times and it still takes your breath away, because every display is different. Sometimes it's just a faint green glow on the northern horizon, like someone left a light on behind the mountains. Other times, it's a full-on storm, with curtains of green and pink and purple rippling across the entire sky, moving so fast you can literally see them dance. One driver told me about the night he saw the aurora turn red. "I'd been driving for 10 years, he said, and I'd seen every color you can imagine. Green mostly, pink sometimes, purple, but never red. Then one night I'm cruising past Coldfoot and I look up and the whole sky is crimson. Deep, blood-red curtains moving like waves. I pulled over because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Spent an hour just standing there in the cold, watching. Later I found out there'd been a huge solar storm. That's what causes the red, really intense aurora activity. But in the moment, I didn't care about the science. I just knew I was seeing something I'd never see again." The green is the most common color. It's caused by oxygen molecules about 60 miles up, getting excited by solar particles. Pink and purple come from nitrogen, usually at lower altitudes. Red is oxygen at very high altitudes and it's rare. Blue is even rarer, though it happens. The colors swirl and shift, creating patterns that seem almost alive. Arcs and bands and rays and coronas, each form has a name, but when you're out there watching, you don't care about names. You just watch. Photographers love the Dalton for this reason. In winter, they'll drive up, set up their cameras at one of the pullouts and shoot all night. The challenge is the cold. Camera batteries die fast in extreme cold, so you have to keep them warm. Tripods get finicky when the temperature drops below -20. The lubricants in the joints freeze up, and you have to be careful with your own exposure. Spend too long outside without proper gear, and frostbite will get you. But if you can deal with all that, the shots you get are incredible. The aurora overhead, the pipeline snaking through the frame, mountains in the background, maybe a truck rolling past with its lights on. It's the kind of image that defines Alaska. Truckers have a different relationship with the aurora. For them, it's not a photo opportunity. It's a companion, something that keeps them company during those long, dark hours. They'll talk about it on the CB. "Boys, she's putting on a show tonight. Look northwest." And everyone will take a moment to glance out their window to see those green curtains dancing, and it'll lift their spirits. Because as hard as this job is, as dark as the winter gets, there's beauty up here. Real, genuine, breathtaking beauty. And you get to see it in a way most people never will. There's even a practical aspect. When the aurora is really strong, it can create enough light that you can see without headlights. The snow reflects the green glow, and suddenly the landscape is visible. You can see the road, the mountains, the trees. It's an eerie, otherworldly light, not like daylight, but not like artificial light either. Something in between, and it moves. The shadows shift and dance because the light source is moving. It's disconcerting and beautiful at the same time. But the aurora isn't the only thing lighting up the winter sky. There's also the moon. In winter, when the sun is gone, the moon becomes incredibly important. A full moon in the Arctic winter is bright, far brighter than a full moon in the lower 48, because there's no ambient light to compete with. Just the moon and the stars and the snow, which reflects everything. On a clear night with a full moon, you can read a book outside. You can see for miles. The landscape looks silvery and magical, like something out of a dream. New moon nights are the opposite, total darkness. The kind of darkness where you can't see your hand in front of your face. On those nights, your headlights are everything. And if something goes wrong, if your lights fail, if your truck breaks down, you're in serious trouble. Because there's no ambient light to see by, no glow from a distant city, no streetlights, nothing. Just darkness so complete it's almost hostile. Truckers learn to work with the darkness. They learn to trust their instruments, to navigate by GPS and CB warnings rather than by sight. They learn to recognize landmarks even in the dark, the way the road curves, the shape of a hill, the distance between mile markers. They develop an almost instinctive sense of where they are, even when they can't see. And they learn to appreciate the return of the light. When you've been driving in darkness for weeks, and then one day you notice that the twilight is lasting a little longer, that the southern horizon is glowing a little brighter, it's like a weight lifting. The sun is coming back. Winter is ending. And even though you know you'll be back next year doing it all over again, in that moment, the return of light feels like a miracle. One driver described it to me like this. In January, it's all darkness. You drive, you sleep, you drive again, and it's dark the whole time. But in February, you start to see the change. The sky gets a little lighter each day. By March, you've got actual daylight again, just a few hours, but it's there. And when you see that first sunrise after months of darkness, it hits different. You feel it in your chest, like your soul is waking up. And you understand why ancient people worship the sun. Because after that much darkness, light isn't just light, it's life. That's the Dalton in winter. Darkness and light in their most extreme forms. And the truckers who run this road learn to navigate both, to find beauty in the auroras and strength in the returning sun. They learn that darkness isn't just an obstacle. It's part of the job, part of the experience. And when you make it through, when you drive those midnight miles under dancing green lights, you come out changed, harder, wiser, more aware of how small we are and how beautiful the world can be. Let's spend some time talking about the creatures that call the Dalton Highway home, because this isn't just a road through wilderness. It's a road through habitat, through migration routes, through feeding grounds and breeding grounds and the territories of animals that have been here far longer than the road has. Moose, as I mentioned earlier, are everywhere. They're the most common large animal you'll encounter on the southern half of the Dalton. These animals are perfectly adapted to Alaska's winters. Their long legs help them walk through deep snow. Their thick fur insulates them from temperatures that would kill most animals. And they feed on willows and birch bark, which are abundant in the boreal forest. But moose are also incredibly dangerous. More people are killed by moose in Alaska than by bears. Part of this is because moose are unpredictable. A cow with a calf will attack anything she perceives as a threat, and she can move surprisingly fast. A bull in rut during September and October is aggressive and territorial, and he won't back down from anything, including an 18-wheeler. And they're massive. An adult bull can weigh 1,500 pounds. That's 3/4 of a ton. If you hit one with your truck, the animal's body is at exactly the wrong height. It'll come through your windshield and crush you. So truckers treat moose with extreme caution. When you see one on the road, you slow down immediately. You give it space. You don't honk, that can startle it and make it bolt, possibly right into your path. You just wait. Sometimes the moose will wander off the road on its own. Sometimes it'll stand there for 20 minutes, staring at you before finally deciding to move. And sometimes it'll charge. One driver told me about an encounter he had near the Yukon River. He was cruising along at about 40 miles an hour when he came around a corner and saw a massive bull standing in the middle of the road. He hit the brakes, came to a stop about 50 feet away. The moose turned its head, looked at him, then went back to eating willows on the side of the road. The driver figured he'd wait it out. 5 minutes passed. 10. The moose was in no hurry. Finally, the driver tapped his horn, just a quick beep trying to get the animal's attention. Bad move. The moose wheeled around, lowered its head, and charged. The driver threw his truck into reverse and started backing up as fast as he could. The moose was gaining. He could see those antlers getting closer, spreading 6 feet across, sharp and heavy enough to punch through metal. At the last second, the moose veered off, ran past him, and disappeared into the forest. The driver sat there for a few minutes, heart pounding, hands shaking. "I've been scared before," he said, "but that was different. That animal wanted to hurt me, and there was nothing I could do except back up and hope." Caribou are less aggressive but more numerous. The Dalton Highway cuts right through the migration route of the Central Arctic caribou herd. More than 20,000 animals that move between summer calving grounds on the coastal plain and winter feeding grounds in the Brooks Range. When they're migrating, they cross the road in massive groups. Thousands of them flowing like a brown river across the highway, mothers and calves and bulls with huge antlers. You can't drive through them. You have to stop and wait. Sometimes for an hour, sometimes longer. Drivers have mixed feelings about these delays. On one hand, it's frustrating. You're on a schedule, you've got a load to deliver, and here you are stuck watching caribou. On the other hand, it's beautiful. These herds have been making this journey for thousands of years, long before there was a road here. And you're watching something ancient and wild, something that connects you to the history of this land in a way that's hard to put into words. One driver told me he uses caribou crossing time to eat lunch. "I'll pull over, kill the engine, break out my sandwich, and just watch," he said. "It's peaceful in a way. All these animals moving together, like they're following some map that's written in their DNA. Makes you think about how everything's connected. How this road we're driving on is really just a thin line through their world, and we're the visitors, not them." Bears are less common but more concerning. In the southern section of the Dalton, you'll see black bears occasionally. They're smaller than grizzlies, less aggressive, more likely to run away than confront you. But they're still bears. You don't want to mess with them. Grizzlies are the real concern. These animals can weigh 800 pounds or more. They can run at 35 miles per hour. They have claws like steak knives and jaws strong enough to crush bone. And they're smart. They're curious. And sometimes they're aggressive. Most of the time, bears want nothing to do with humans or trucks. They'll see you coming and disappear into the brush before you even know they were there. But occasionally, you'll encounter a bear that doesn't run, a bear that stands its ground or even approaches. These moments are terrifying. You're in your truck, which should keep you safe, but bears have been known to damage vehicles, ripping off mirrors, denting doors. And if you're outside your truck when a bear shows up, you're in real danger. The protocol is simple. Stay in your truck. Don't get out. Don't make eye contact. Wait for the bear to leave. And if it doesn't leave, call for help on the CB. Other drivers have been known to form convoys to scare bears off. A few trucks rolling together, horns blaring, is usually enough to convince a bear to go elsewhere. Near Deadhorse, you start seeing polar bears. These are a different species entirely, larger than grizzlies, better adapted to cold, and evolved to hunt in the Arctic. Polar bears are apex predators. They're at the top of the food chain, and they're not afraid of anything, including humans. The oil companies in Prudhoe Bay have protocols for dealing with polar bears. There are spotters whose job is to watch for bears and alert people when they're in the area. There are vehicles specifically designed for bear encounters, with reinforced doors and windows. And there are rules. If you see a polar bear, do not approach it. Do not try to take pictures. Get inside a building and stay there until the bear leaves. Truckers at Deadhorse have told me about waking up to find polar bears walking past their trucks, just strolling through the parking area, curious, looking for food. The bears know humans mean food, either because of trash or because of the animals that humans have killed while hunting. So they come into town looking, and if you're unlucky enough to be outside when one shows up, you're in trouble. But bears aren't the only predators on the Dalton. There are wolves, lynx, wolverines. Most of these animals you'll never see. They're shy, elusive, active at night, but they're out there. The Dalton runs through some of the best wildlife habitat in North America, and the animals that live here are wild in the truest sense. They're not used to humans. They don't see trucks as normal, and occasionally they show up. One driver told me about seeing a wolf pack on the road. It was late February, deep winter, and he was northbound near Weissman. He came around a curve, and there they were, 7 wolves, standing in the middle of the highway, staring at his headlights. He slowed down, expecting them to scatter. They didn't. They just stood there watching. He crept closer, and finally the pack leader, a huge gray wolf with pale eyes, turned and trotted off the road. The rest followed. But before they disappeared into the trees, the leader looked back just once. "I swear," the driver said, "it was like he was sizing me up, like he was thinking about what I was and whether I was a threat, and then he was gone." I sat there for a minute, just thinking about how wild this place is. How these animals are living their lives out here, hunting and surviving, and most people will never even know they exist. Then there are the smaller animals. Arctic foxes, which sometimes follow the trucks, looking for food scraps. Ravens, which are incredibly smart and have learned to hang around truck stops, scavenging whatever they can find. Ptarmigan, which are like Arctic chickens, white in winter, brown in summer, and completely oblivious to traffic. And the birds of prey, golden eagles, gerfalcons, snowy owls, which hunt along the highway because the open ground makes it easier to spot prey. And mosquitoes. Let's not forget the mosquitoes. In summer, they're everywhere. Millions of them. So many that they form clouds you can see from a distance. They'll cover every exposed surface of your truck. They'll swarm you the instant you open your door. Drivers wear head nets and gloves just to pump gas. Mosquitoes in Alaska aren't like mosquitoes in the lower 48, one driver told me. They're bigger, meaner. And there are more of them, so many more. It's like they're trying to carry you away. But here's the thing. As annoying or dangerous as the wildlife can be, it's also one of the best parts of driving the Dalton. Because you're sharing this road with creatures that most people only see in documentaries. You're part of their world, if only temporarily. And every encounter, even the scary ones, reminds you that you're driving through something bigger than yourself. Something ancient. Something that will be here long after the trucks are gone and the road has crumbled. One driver summed it up perfectly. You see a lot of things on the Dalton. Things that make you nervous. Things that make you stop and stare. things that make you grateful you're inside a truck. But you know what? I wouldn't trade it for anything. Because where else in the world are you going to see caribou herds in the thousands, or wolves hunting under the northern lights, or a polar bear walking across the ice like he owns the place? Which, let's be honest, he does. This road is wild, and that's exactly why we drive it. Let's talk about the most challenging section of the Dalton Highway, the part that separates the rookies from the veterans, the part that truckers mention with a mix of respect and dread. The Brooks Range. The Brooks Range is a mountain system that stretches across northern Alaska from west to east, about 700 miles long. It's the northernmost mountain range in North America, and it's a boundary between two very different worlds. To the south, you have the interior, boreal forest, valleys, rivers, a landscape that's cold but recognizable. To the north, you have the Arctic tundra, permafrost, no trees, just endless flat plains stretching to the horizon. And in between, you have the mountains. The Dalton Highway crosses the Brooks Range at Atigun Pass. At 4,739 feet, it's the highest point on the road. It's also the highest roadway pass in Alaska that's maintained year-round. And maintained is a generous term. This is a mountain pass in the Arctic. It's steep, it's narrow, it's exposed to some of the worst weather in North America. And in winter, it's a gauntlet. The approach from the south is gradual. You're climbing but gently winding through valleys following rivers. The mountains are getting closer, bigger, more imposing. And then you reach the entrance to the pass and everything changes. The road steepens, dramatically. You're looking at grades up to 12%, steep enough that if you're driving an empty truck, you'll barely notice. But if you're loaded, hauling 80,000 pounds of drilling equipment or steel pipe or whatever else needs to get to Prudhoe Bay, those grades are serious. Your engine is screaming. Your transmission is working overtime. And you're creeping up that mountain at 15, maybe 20 miles an hour, hoping your truck has what it takes to make it. And that's in good conditions. In bad conditions, when the wind is howling and the snow is flying and the road is nothing but ice, Atigun Pass becomes a nightmare. You're crawling up a mountain in a whiteout with a loaded truck that wants to slide backward. Your wheels are spinning, trying to find traction on ice so slick you could skate on it. The wind is shoving your truck sideways, and you're fighting the wheel, trying to keep the truck centered on a road you can barely see. And if you slide off, if you lose control even for a second, you're going over the edge. The edges of Atigun Pass are not forgiving. On the south side, the drop-offs are steep enough that a truck going over will tumble hundreds of feet before hitting bottom. On the north side, it's worse. The road clings to the mountainside, with a cliff face on one side and a sheer drop on the other. There are no guardrails, no barriers, just a few feet of gravel shoulder and then nothing. Truckers talk about Atigun Pass the way soldiers talk about combat. It's something you survive, something you endure, and if you've done it a few times and come through okay, you've earned a kind of respect. Winter is when the pass is at its worst. Avalanches are a real concern. The slopes above the road are loaded with snow, and when conditions are right or wrong, depending on your perspective, that snow lets loose. There are avalanche warning signs at the base of the pass. There are avalanche chutes, areas where slides are known to happen. And there are stories of trucks getting buried, drivers having to be dug out by rescue crews, loads lost under tons of snow. The wind is the other major problem. Atigun Pass is a natural wind funnel. Air from the Arctic Ocean gets channeled through the mountains, accelerating as it goes, and by the time it hits the pass, it's screaming. Gusts can reach 70, 80, even 100 miles per hour. At those speeds, wind isn't just annoying, it's dangerous. It can flip a trailer, it can push a truck off the road, it can turn a heavy rig into a toy. Truckers have to make judgment calls at Atigun. Do the conditions justify going over, or do you pull over and wait for the weather to improve? It's not always an easy call. Waiting means burning fuel, losing time, potentially sitting for days if a big storm rolls through. But pushing forward means risking your truck, your load, and your life. Some truckers won't run Atigun in bad weather. Period. They've been doing this long enough to know that the pass doesn't forgive mistakes. One wrong move and you're done. Others are more willing to take risks, especially if they've got a deadline or if the money's good enough. But even the bravest truckers will tell you, there are days when Atigun is just too much. Days when you look at the pass, see the snow blowing sideways, hear the wind howling and say, nope, not today. The pass is beautiful though. In summer, when the snow has melted and the wildflowers are blooming, it's stunning. The mountains rise up in jagged peaks, gray and brown rock against blue sky. Eagles and falcons wheel overhead. Streams tumble down the slopes, carrying snowmelt to the valleys below. And the road, for once, is relatively smooth. You can actually enjoy the drive instead of just enduring it. In winter, the beauty is harsher. The mountains are white with snow, stark and unforgiving. The sky is often gray, heavy with clouds. But on clear days when the sun is low, or during the brief twilight in December and January, the peaks glow gold and pink. The snow sparkles, and for a few minutes, you forget about the danger and just appreciate where you are. But then the wind picks up, or the snow starts falling, and you remember. One of the most challenging aspects of Atigun Pass is chaining up. In winter, when the road is icy, truckers have to put chains on their tires for traction. This is required by law in certain conditions, and it's backbreaking work. You're kneeling on ice-covered gravel in sub-zero temperatures with wind cutting through your coat, wrestling with heavy chains and trying to get them onto your tires properly. Your fingers go numb, your face hurts, and all you can think about is getting it done so you can get back in the warm cab. But it's necessary. Without chains, you're not making it over the pass. The tires will just spin and you'll slide backward or worse, sideways. So you chain up, you do the work, and then you climb back in your truck, start the engine and begin the ascent. On the north side of the pass, the descent is equally challenging. You're going downhill on a steep grade with a loaded truck that wants to accelerate. You use your engine brake, the Jake brake, truckers call it, to slow down without overheating your regular brakes. But the Jake brake is loud. It roars like a freight train, echoing off the mountains. And you're riding that brake the whole way down, gear low, speed controlled, trying not to let momentum get away from you. If your brakes fail, if they overheat and fade, you're in serious trouble. A runaway truck on Atigun Pass has nowhere to go. There are no runaway ramps, no sand pits, just the cliff edge. Truckers have nightmares about this scenario. Losing their brakes, gaining speed, unable to stop, watching the curve coming up fast and knowing they're not going to make it. It's one of the reasons why experienced drivers are so careful about brake maintenance. They check their brakes constantly. They replace pads before they're worn out. They never take chances. But despite all the danger, despite all the challenges, most truckers will tell you that Atigun Pass is also one of the highlights of driving the Dalton. Because when you make it over, when you crest the pass and start descending the north side, and you look back at the mountains behind you, knowing you just drove through that, there's a sense of accomplishment, a sense of having done something hard, something that tested you, and you passed. One driver described it to me like this: Atigun Pass is the heart of the Dalton. Everything before it is build-up, everything after it is aftermath. But the pass itself, that's where you prove yourself. That's where you find out if you've got what it takes. And when you make it through, when you're on the north side and the tundra is stretching out in front of you, you feel different, stronger, like you've earned the right to call yourself a Dalton driver. That's Atigun Pass, the test, the trial, the place where the Dalton shows you who's boss. And for those who make it through, it's a badge of honor, a story to tell, and a memory that stays with you forever. At mile 175, you reach Coldfoot. Population, somewhere between 10 and 20, depending on who you ask and what time of year it is. It's the only real settlement between Fairbanks and Deadhorse. The only place that feels even remotely like a town. And for truckers, it's an oasis. Coldfoot wasn't always called Coldfoot. Originally, it was Slate Creek, a mining camp established during the gold rush of 1898. But the story goes that a group of prospectors arrived in the area, took one look at the brutal winter conditions, got cold feet, and turned around. The name stuck. By 1912, the boom was over and Coldfoot became a ghost town. It stayed that way for decades, just a few abandoned buildings slowly rotting in the wilderness. Then, in 1974, when they built the Dalton Highway, Coldfoot got a second life. The construction crews needed a base camp, somewhere to stage equipment and house workers. So they rebuilt Coldfoot, put in a few buildings, set up fuel pumps, opened a cafe. And when the highway opened to commercial traffic, Coldfoot became the unofficial halfway point. A place to stop, refuel, rest, and prepare for the next leg. Today, Coldfoot is small but functional. There's a truck stop with fuel pumps, diesel and unleaded. There's a cafe that serves hot food. There's a small hotel with basic rooms. And there's a post office, though it's only open a few hours a day. That's it. No grocery store. No mechanic shop. No hospital. If something goes wrong in Coldfoot, you're dealing with it yourself or calling for help from Fairbanks, which is 5 hours away. But for truckers, Coldfoot is everything. It's the place where you pull over, take a breath, and assess how things are going. Are you making good time? Is your truck running okay? Do you need to adjust your load? Are you hungry, tired, cold? Coldfoot gives you a chance to deal with all of that before continuing north. The cafe is the heart of Coldfoot. It's small, maybe a dozen tables, but it's warm and the food is surprisingly good. They serve burgers, sandwiches, soup, chili, and coffee. Lots of coffee. The coffee at Coldfoot is legendary among truckers. Strong enough to wake the dead, they say. And after hours on the road, driving through darkness or whiteouts, that coffee is a lifeline. The cafe is also where stories get told. Truckers pull up, park their rigs, and head inside. They order food, grab a table, and start talking about the road, about the weather, about close calls and crazy things they've seen. The cafe is where you hear about the guy who hit a moose last week and totaled his truck, about the woman who drove through a whiteout on Atigun Pass and somehow made it out alive, about the northern lights last night and whether they were better than the night before. There's a community that forms in Coldfoot, a temporary, shifting community of people who are all doing the same thing, hauling freight through one of the most challenging roads in the world. You might not know the person sitting at the next table, but you know their life, you know what they're going through, and that creates a kind of bond. One driver told me about a night he spent in Coldfoot waiting out a storm. He'd been driving for 10 hours, made it as far as Coldfoot, and then the weather turned. The wind picked up, snow started falling, visibility dropped to 0, so he pulled into the parking lot, went into the cafe, and ordered dinner. While he was eating, 3 more trucks pulled in. Same situation, everyone was stuck. So they ended up sitting together, drinking coffee, telling stories, killing time. We were there for 16 hours, the driver said, just waiting for the storm to pass. But it wasn't bad. We played cards, told jokes. One guy had a guitar in his truck, so he brought it in and played for a while. By the time the storm cleared and we got back on the road, I felt like I'd known those people for years. That's Coldfoot. A place where strangers become friends, if only for a night. A place where the isolation of the road is temporarily broken. And a place where you're reminded that you're not alone. There are other people doing this. Other people who understand. The fuel stop at Coldfoot is critical. It's the last place to get fuel before Deadhorse, which is 240 miles away. If you don't top off here, you might not make it. And running out of fuel on the Dalton is about the worst thing that can happen. There's no AAA, no roadside assistance. You'd have to call another trucker, convince them to stop, and then figure out how to transfer diesel from their truck to yours. It's a nightmare, so everyone fuels up in Coldfoot, even if their tanks are still half full, even if they're pretty sure they'll make it. You don't take chances. The hotel in Coldfoot is basic but clean. Small rooms with beds, a bathroom, heat. That's all you need. Some truckers will rent a room and sleep there instead of in their cab. It's a chance to stretch out, take a hot shower, sleep in a real bed. Others prefer to stay in their trucks. "I'm used to my cab," one driver told me. "It's my space. Feels weird sleeping anywhere else." In winter, Coldfoot is dark and cold and isolated. The population drops even further, just a handful of people running the truck stop and cafe. The buildings are lit up, glowing in the darkness, and when you roll in after hours on the road, it feels like you're arriving at the edge of civilization. Which, in a way, you are. In summer, Coldfoot gets more traffic. Tourists come up in rented trucks or on guided tour, wanting to see the Arctic Circle and experience the Dalton. The town gets busier. The cafe is full. There's even a visitor center run by the Bureau of Land Management, where you can learn about the history of the area and the wildlife. But winter is when Coldfoot really shines. When it's just the truckers and the darkness and the cold. When the northern lights are dancing overhead and the wind is howling through the mountains and you're halfway between Fairbanks and Deadhorse, with 200 miles of road behind you and 240 miles ahead. You pull into Coldfoot, park your truck, and step into the cafe. The warmth hits you like a wave. The smell of coffee and burgers makes your stomach growl. And for a few minutes, you're not alone. You're part of a community, a tribe. A group of people who know what it takes to survive out here. One driver summed it up like this: "Coldfoot isn't much. A few buildings in the middle of nowhere. But when you've been driving through darkness for hours and you see those lights in the distance, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. It means you made it halfway. It means you can rest. It means you're going to be okay." That's Coldfoot, the halfway point, the oasis, the place where you pause before continuing into the Arctic. North of Coldfoot, everything changes. The trees start to thin out. By mile 200, they're gone entirely, replaced by low shrubs and tundra. The landscape opens up, becoming vast and flat and featureless. The mountains recede into the distance, and you realize you're in the Arctic now, for real. The tundra is unlike anything most people have ever seen. It's not a desert, there's life here, plants and animals adapted to extreme conditions, but it feels empty. There are no landmarks, no hills, no forests, just flatness stretching to the horizon in every direction. In summer, the tundra is covered in low vegetation, grasses, mosses, lichens. Wildflowers bloom in brief bursts of color, but in winter it's all white. Snow covers everything. The sky and the ground blend together, creating a sense of infinity. This is where you start to understand the scale of Alaska. The lower 48 has open spaces, prairies, deserts, plains. But those spaces are always defined by something. A town in the distance, a road intersecting yours, mountains on the horizon. The tundra on the north slope has none of that. It's just space. Endless, empty, overwhelming space. And you're driving through it, a tiny speck of metal and glass and rubber, insignificant against the vastness. The road itself becomes more challenging north of the Brooks Range. The gravel is rougher. The frost heaves are worse. And because you're on permafrost, ground that's been frozen for thousands of years, the road shifts constantly. One year, a section will be smooth. The next year, it'll be a disaster, buckled and cracked and full of potholes. The state does what it can to maintain the road, but it's a losing battle. The land is moving, slowly but inexorably, and the road has to move with it. There's a section near mile 200 that truckers call the Violence. It's not an official name, but it's accurate. For about 10 miles, the road is just brutal. Potholes the size of basketballs. Frost heaves that launch your truck into the air. Washboard sections that rattle your teeth. You have to slow down to 15 or 20 miles an hour just to keep from tearing your truck apart. And even then, you're getting beaten up. Your suspension is screaming. Your load is shifting. And you're gripping the wheel trying to steer around the worst spots while knowing there's no avoiding all of them. But you keep going, because that's the job. and because somewhere up ahead is Deadhorse, the end of the line, the goal. Wildlife is still present on the North Slope, but it's different. The caribou are here. The North Slope is part of their range. You'll see muskox occasionally, these massive, shaggy creatures that look like they belong in the Ice Age. They're placid most of the time, just standing around chewing grass, but they can be aggressive if you get too close. Truckers know to give them space. Arctic foxes dart across the road, white and fast, hunting lemmings. Snowy owls perch on signs and posts, watching for prey. And occasionally, very occasionally, you'll see a wolverine. These animals are rare, elusive, and tough as nails. They're also mean. Truckers tell stories about wolverines attacking tires, trying to chew through rubber. No one knows why. Maybe they're just angry, but if you see a wolverine, you give it respect. The northern lights are even more spectacular up here. With no trees and no mountains to block the view, the entire sky becomes a canvas. You'll see auroras that stretch from horizon to horizon, curtains of green and purple so bright they cast shadows on the snow. Some nights, the aurora is so active it looks like the sky is on fire. And you're driving through it, this cosmic light show unfolding above you, and it's hard to focus on the road because you keep wanting to look up. One driver told me about a night he spent pulled over near mile 300 just watching the aurora. It was the most intense display I've ever seen, he said. The colors were unreal, deep green, bright pink, even some red. And they were moving so fast, like waves crashing on a beach but made of light. I stood outside for 2 hours, freezing my ass off, but I couldn't make myself go back inside. It was like nature was putting on a show just for me. That's one of the perks of driving the Dalton. You get to see things that most people will never see. Things that would cost thousands of dollars to experience if you were a tourist. But as a trucker, it's just part of the job. Another night on the road, another light show, another reminder of how beautiful and wild this place is. As you get closer to Deadhorse, you start to see signs of human activity. Oil pipelines branching off the main Trans-Alaska Pipeline, service roads leading to remote drilling sites, the occasional building, a pump station or a worker camp. And then, finally, around mile 410, you start to see the lights of Deadhorse. Deadhorse isn't a town in any traditional sense. It's more of an industrial camp, a collection of buildings, most of them modular units set on gravel pads, designed to house and support the thousands of workers who cycle through the North Slope oil fields. There's no main street, no residential neighborhoods, no parks or schools, just industrial facilities, worker housing, and the trucks that keep it all running. But after 400 miles of driving through wilderness, Deadhorse looks like civilization. The lights glow in the darkness, smoke rises from chimneys, and when you roll in, you feel a sense of accomplishment. You made it. You drove the Dalton, and now it's time to deliver your load. The trucking terminals in Deadhorse are efficient. They have to be. Trucks are coming and going constantly, hauling supplies to the oil fields and taking equipment back south. The loading docks are busy. Forklifts move back and forth. Workers in insulated coveralls direct traffic, making sure everything moves smoothly. You back up to a dock, unhook your trailer, and let them unload. It takes a while, sometimes an hour, sometimes more, depending on what you're hauling. While you wait, you can grab a meal at one of the worker camps. The food is surprisingly good. The oil companies feed their workers well: prime rib, salmon, crab, salad bars, desserts. It's one of the perks of working on the slope. And truckers are welcome to eat there while they're waiting. After your trailer is unloaded, you hook up to an empty one, or sometimes you just take your empty trailer back and prepare for the return journey. Some drivers will sleep for a few hours before heading south. Others will refuel and roll immediately. It depends on the schedule, the weather, and how tired you are. Deadhorse has a strange atmosphere. It's busy but also lonely. There are hundreds of people here, but most of them are just passing through. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. They work long shifts, sleep in modular housing, and fly out when their rotation is done. There's no community, not really. No roots, just a constant churn of workers and trucks and equipment. But for truckers, Deadhorse is a milestone. You drove all the way to the Arctic Ocean, or close enough, since access to the actual ocean is restricted. You hauled a load through some of the harshest conditions in North America, and now you get to turn around and do it all over again, heading south. One driver described Deadhorse like this: "It's not pretty, it's not welcoming, but it represents something. It's proof that humans can survive anywhere if they're determined enough. And when you pull in after a long haul north, and you see all those buildings and trucks and people, you realize you're part of something big. You're part of the system that keeps America's energy flowing. And that feels good, even if the place itself is kind of bleak." That's Deadhorse, the end of the road, the edge of the Arctic. The place where the Dalton Highway finally stops and the work begins. Let's talk about the people who do this. Not just the driving, but the whole lifestyle. Because being an ice road trucker isn't just a job, it's a way of life. And it comes with sacrifices most people never think about. The money is good, really good. Full-time drivers on the Dalton can make $150,000 to $175,000 a year, sometimes more if they're running heavy haul or oversized loads. That's far above the national average for truck drivers, which is around $48,000. But there's a reason the pay is so high. The work is dangerous, it's physically demanding, it's mentally exhausting, and it takes you away from home for weeks at a time. Most Dalton truckers work on a rotation, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or 3 weeks on, 1 week off. During their on weeks, they're based in Fairbanks or Anchorage, running loads back and forth to Deadhorse. They might make 2 or 3 round trips a week, depending on the schedule. That means they're on the road constantly, living in their trucks, eating truck stop food, sleeping in their cabs or in cheap motels. They're away from their families, away from their homes, away from everything familiar. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, they get a break. They fly home, wherever home is. Texas, Washington, Florida, anywhere. They spend time with their families. They catch up on life, they rest, and then they fly back to Alaska and do it all over again. It's a hard lifestyle. Relationships suffer. Marriages fall apart. Kids grow up without their dads or moms because there are women driving the Dalton too, though they're in the minority. One driver told me about missing his daughter's high school graduation because he was on the slope. "I felt terrible," he said, "but the money's too good to pass up. We needed it for her college fund, so I worked. And I missed one of the biggest moments of her life. That's the trade-off. But not everyone sees it as a sacrifice. Some drivers love the lifestyle. They love the freedom of the road, the solitude, the challenge. They're not the kind of people who want to sit in an office or work a 9-to-5 job. They want adventure, and the Dalton gives them that. One driver I talked to, a guy named Mike, who's been running the Dalton for 20 years, told me he can't imagine doing anything else. "I tried working locally once," he said. "Hauling freight around Anchorage home every night. I lasted 3 months. I was bored out of my mind. The Dalton is where I belong. It's where I feel alive. Yeah, the money's great. But it's more than that. It's the challenge. Every trip is different. Every day tests you. And when you make it through, when you deliver your load and turn around and do it again, you feel like you've accomplished something." For some drivers, the Dalton is a stepping stone. They do it for a few years, save up money, and then move on to something else. Buy a house, start a business, retire early. The pay is good enough that you can build a nest egg quickly if you're smart about it. But for others, the Dalton becomes home. They keep coming back, year after year, decade after decade, because they can't imagine doing anything else. There's also a sense of pride. Being a Dalton driver sets you apart. It means you've done something most people can't or won't do. You've driven through conditions that would terrify most drivers. You've handled loads that would challenge anyone. And you've survived. That matters. It gives you a sense of identity. You're not just a trucker, you're a Dalton trucker, and that means something. The camaraderie among drivers is real and deep. You help each other. You look out for each other. Because up here, you might be the only help someone gets. If a driver breaks down in the middle of nowhere and you drive past without stopping, that driver could die. It's happened. So you don't drive past. You stop. You offer help. And you trust that if the roles were reversed, someone would do the same for you. One driver told me about the time he blew a tire near mile 250. It was February, minus 30 degrees. He pulled over, grabbed his tools, and started working on the tire. But his hands were freezing. His fingers went numb. He was struggling. And then a truck pulled up behind him. The driver got out, walked over, and without a word started helping. Together, they got the tire changed in 20 minutes. The other driver refused any payment, just said, "You do the same for me," and got back in his truck. That's the culture on the Dalton. You take care of each other because everyone up here understands the stakes, but let's be honest. The lifestyle takes a toll. The cold, the darkness, the isolation, the stress, it wears on you. Drivers develop health problems, back pain from the rough roads, hearing loss from the engine noise, stress-related issues. Some drivers struggle with depression, especially during the darkest months. And substance abuse is a problem in the industry, though companies have gotten better about screening and supporting drivers. The turnover rate is high. A lot of drivers try the Dalton and decide it's not for them. They do one season, maybe two, and then they're done. They move on to easier routes, lower pay, but more stability. And no one blames them, because the Dalton isn't for everyone. It requires a certain mindset, a certain resilience. And not everyone has that. But for those who do, for those who find their calling on this wild, dangerous, beautiful road, it's more than a job. It's a life, a way of being in the world, and they wouldn't trade it for anything. One driver put it this way: "People ask me why I do this, why I spend months away from home, driving through some of the worst conditions on earth for money I could probably make somewhere safer and easier." And I tell them, because it matters. What I do matters. Those oil fields don't run without us. The people working up there need food, equipment, supplies, and we bring it to them. We're the lifeline. And yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's dangerous. But it's also meaningful. I'm not just moving freight. I'm keeping things running. I'm part of something important. And that makes all the hardship worth it. That's the human side of the Dalton. People making sacrifices, chasing dreams, testing themselves, and finding meaning in one of the hardest jobs in America. They're tough, they're skilled, and they're essential. Without them, the North Slope shuts down, Alaska's oil stops flowing, and a big chunk of America's energy disappears. So the next time you fill up your tank, think about the truckers who made it possible. The ones driving through darkness, through cold, through storms and mountains and tundra, hauling the fuel and equipment that keeps everything running. They're out there right now, rolling up the Dalton, headlights cutting through the night, CB radio crackling with voices, the northern lights dancing overhead. They're doing what most people can't, and they're doing it because they love it. The return journey is different. You're heading south now, back toward Fairbanks, back toward civilization. Your trailer is empty, which means your truck handles differently, lighter, faster, but also more prone to sliding on ice. And even though you've just driven this road, even though you know what's ahead, it still demands your full attention. Empty trucks don't have the right of way on the Dalton. That's part of the code. If you meet a loaded truck coming north, you're expected to pull over and let them pass. They're making money. You're just heading home. So you find a turnout, pull over, and wait while they rumble past. Most drivers will give a wave or a nod as they go by. It's a small gesture, but it means something. The landscape looks different on the return trip, or maybe you just see it differently. You're more relaxed now. The hard part is done. You made the delivery. Now it's just a matter of getting back. You notice things you missed on the way north, the shape of a mountain, the way the pipeline curves through a valley, the frozen waterfall hanging from a cliff like a sculpture of ice. Atigun Pass is just as challenging on the way back, but in a different way. You're going downhill on the south side, which means controlling your speed, riding your brakes, hoping nothing goes wrong. The north side, which was a climb on the way up, is now a descent. Either way, the pass commands respect. You don't relax until you're through it and back in the valleys below. Coldfoot is a welcome sight again. You pull in, fuel up, maybe grab a burger and coffee. The cafe is full of familiar faces, truckers you passed on the road, people you talked to on the CB. You exchange updates. How was the road? See any wildlife? Hear about the weather forecast. And then you're back on the road, pushing south, eating up the miles. The Yukon River Bridge marks another threshold. You're back in the forest now, back in a landscape that feels more familiar, more human scale. The vast emptiness of the tundra is behind you. The mountains are behind you. Deadhorse is behind you. And ahead is Fairbanks with its lights and warmth and the promise of rest. The last 50 miles feel longer than they should. You're tired. Your body aches. Your eyes are burning from staring at the road for hours, but you're close now. You can feel it. And when you finally roll into Fairbanks, when you see the glow of the city and the familiar outlines of buildings and streets, there's a sense of relief. You made it, another run complete. You pull into the terminal, park your truck, and shut off the engine. For the first time in hours, it's quiet. No engine noise, no road noise, just silence. And in that silence, you feel the weight of what you just did. You drove 800 miles through some of the harshest conditions on Earth. You navigated ice and snow and darkness. You crossed mountains and tundra. You delivered your load and made it back. And now, for a few hours or a few days, you can rest. You can sleep in a real bed. You can eat a real meal. You can call your family and let them know you're okay. And then, when you're ready, you'll do it all over again. Because that's the job, that's the life. And as hard as it is, as dangerous as it is, it's also what you chose. One driver described the feeling perfectly. When you shut off that engine after a long run and you just sit there in the quiet, there's this moment of pure exhaustion mixed with pride. You're bone tired, everything hurts, but you also feel accomplished. You did something hard. You survived. And tomorrow you'll do it again, because this is who you are. This is what you do. That's the Dalton Highway. That's the life of an ice road trucker. It's not glamorous, it's not easy, but it's real, it's meaningful. And for those who do it, it's home. We've covered a lot of ground tonight, haven't we? From Fairbanks to Deadhorse and back. 414 miles each way. Through darkness and light, cold and wind, beauty and danger. We've talked about the road, the trucks, the wildlife, the people. We've explored what it means to drive one of the most challenging highways in North America. And maybe, just maybe, we've come to understand why people do it. The Dalton Highway isn't just a road, it's a test, a challenge, a proving ground. It asks questions. Are you tough enough? Are you skilled enough? Can you handle the isolation, the cold, the danger? Can you navigate by feel when you can't see? Can you make decisions under pressure? Can you help a stranger in need? And for those who answer yes, for those who rise to the challenge, the Dalton gives back something valuable. Not just money, though the money is good, but something deeper. A sense of purpose. A sense of belonging to a community of people who understand what it takes. A sense of having done something that matters. The ice roads of Alaska are more than just routes for trucks. They're lifelines. They're the arteries that keep the North Slope alive, that keep America's energy flowing, that connect one of the most remote places on Earth to the rest of civilization. And the drivers who run these roads, the ice road truckers, are the ones who make it all possible. They're out there right now, driving through darkness lit by auroras, battling winds that can flip a truck, dodging moose and caribou and bears, crossing mountain passes that would terrify most people, delivering loads that weigh as much as a house. And they're doing it with skill, with courage, and with a quiet determination that's hard to find anywhere else. So the next time you hear about Alaska, about the last frontier, about the wild places where humans barely have a foothold, Think about the Dalton Highway. Think about the truckers who drive it. Think about the midnight miles, the northern lights, the frozen rivers, the mountains standing like sentinels. Think about the darkness and the light and the people who navigate both. Because up there in the far north, where the road ends at the edge of the Arctic Ocean, there are people doing one of the hardest jobs in America. They're hauling freight through conditions most of us can't imagine. They're surviving, they're thriving, and they're keeping the wheels turning literally and figuratively. That's the story of Alaska's ice roads. That's the story of the midnight miles. And it's a story worth telling. Thanks for riding along with me tonight. Stay safe out there. And until next time, keep those wheels rolling and those stories coming. This is the stories of the American highways, signing off from the Dalton.